Okay. All right, this is President Hersey, and I am now calling the April 4th, 2023 regular board meeting to order at 4:15 p.m. This meeting is being recorded. We would like to acknowledge that we are on the ancestral lands and traditional territories of the Puget Sound Coast Salish people. Ms. Wilson-Jones, the roll call, please.
Director Harris. Vice President Rankin.
Here.
Director Rivera-Smith. Director Rivera-Smith.
Present.
Director Sarju.
Present.
Director Song-Moritz.
Present.
And looks like we do not yet have Director Hampson here.
Director
And-
Hampson is joining remotely shortly.
Excellent. Director Hampson, I see.
Here.
President Hersey. Here. And Director Yuen.
Here.
Okay, fantastic. Just want to note that we've got a number of directors and even the superintendent who are joining remotely due to various COVID things and exposures and things like that. So just as a reminder, it's not over. So please continue to wash your hands. This is President Hersey. I am now calling the April 4th, 2023 regular board meeting, or actually I already read that part. I will now turn it over to Superintendent Jones for his comments.
President Hersey and board members and audience today. Sorry I can't be with you today. As President Hersey mentioned, I'm one of the people who's recovering. I'm doing well for the FYI, but thank you for excusing me to be here remotely. I'd like to start out with some sensational news. As you may have heard, this year's Garfield High School Bulldogs added to their basketball legacy with not one, but two championship titles. They won state in two areas. The girls team is the first Class 3A squad in Washington State to earn a three-peat championship. For the boys team, it's their 16th boys basketball championship since the school was founded 100 years ago. Please join me in offering big congratulations to both teams. We're so proud of the hard work that they put in to earn their titles. Next, I want to thank all those in the SPS community who have reached out to us with concerns about program and staffing changes in the coming school year. We hear you and appreciate your advocacy for the programs that matter to you. We are holding your concerns as we continue our conversations. And I just want to recognize that this is a challenging time as a district, and many hard decisions are ahead that will impact our entire community. Many decisions are already underway for the 23-24 school year. And while we do that, we're striving to keep you informed as decisions are finalized. We are committed to keeping students at the center and appreciate your partnership as we go forward. Next board meeting, we'll have our first progress monitoring session on the guardrails that the board set for the district. We'll examine guardrails 1, 2, and 3. This will be a great learning opportunity for staff and the board, particularly as this is our first memo and conversation focused on the guardrails, as opposed to student outcome data. So I hope to say in closing, in the midst of this busy season, I hope that you're able to enjoy a period of rest and relaxation during spring break next week. And I wish you the best of luck. Back to you, President Hersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Jones. I will now turn it over to Director Yuan for the student member comments.
Again, this is student board member Jenna Yuen. I'm just going to keep this comment short and provide some updates on what Nasira, Luna, and I have been working on. First, our student representative Instagram account has been up and running. We have been trying to grow our platform by engaging with student organizations in our district, plan posts ahead of time, and maintain a regular posting schedule. If you haven't already, follow us on Instagram at SBS Student Rep to stay updated on everything student board member related. Moving on, the student board member applications closed yesterday, and I would like to thank everyone who has applied. I wish you all the best of luck, and I'm very excited to meet the next cohort of student members. That is it.
Thank you, Director. We have now come to the board comment section of the agenda. The board continues to refine our governance structure with our ad hoc community engagement committee underway now and an ad hoc policy manual review committee expected to convene under the leadership of Vice President Rankin later this month. On April 19th, we will have our next full board work session. We will begin to develop guiding principles for the BEC 6 capital levy, and then we'll move into discussion about our structure for the coming year. With our pause on standing committees now about 6 months in and a lot of productivity from our ad hoc committees, we will need to determine what structure we want to move forward with for our 2023-24 board year. Finally, looking ahead to our next regular board meeting on April 26th, we will begin progress monitoring on guardrails. Our guardrails generate different types of data from our student outcomes goals and will necessitate a new approach to monitoring. Our coach, AJ Craybill, will join us to support us in this learning experience. I'll encourage us to give ourselves and staff grace as we undertake this new work, just as we needed for our initial efforts on goal monitoring last year. We will now move into our other reports tonight. Our ad hoc community engagement committee meeting will be, our next ad hoc community engagement committee meeting will be held April 19th. Director Hampson, could you share a brief report from the most recent committee meeting held last Wednesday?
Sure. Let's see. We from the community ad hoc community engagement. Is that what you asked for?
Yep, you're breaking up just a little bit, just a heads up.
Yeah, I have my video turned off, so will help.
Sounds better now.
So we had please, other directors that were present, fill in. I am hearing a little bit of an echo. The committee had robust conversation about the reading, recommitted to the promise. Sorry, it's really hard to talk with the echo. Is there an audible? Yeah, I have my video turned off. So reasonably while I'm getting echo.
Yeah, we are working on it. I'm not sure what the cause might be.
Okay.
It should be better now.
Director Harris, Sarju, and Rankin fill in at the meantime, since it's just going to be hard to talk with the next one.
Yes, absolutely. Director Harris, would you mind giving us a brief, to the best of your ability,
Gee, thanks.
report? Yeah, sorry. I mean, you're here.
We had a robust discussion about some of the readings, and there was well nigh over 200 pages of readings. We'll be summarizing some of those into bullet points for the next meeting. We talked a lot about trusted community partners and working with them in terms of getting their input on what good board outreach and communication is. We talked a lot about systemic issues, as in, and we used several examples. The Washington Middle School music program, Filipinx history, etc., because we've all been receiving dozens and dozens of those emails. Now, those are just going to the board. Who answers those? Where do we get the FAQs? Our public, and I guess the new term now is care holders, which is a new one on me, but I like it better than stakeholders by a mile, have a right to get a response. But right now, it's kind of like we expect them to do it, they expect us to do it. We have bandwidth issues with respect to support for the board. Our Assistant Superintendent of Public Affairs and Interim Chief of Staff, Bev Redmond, can you wave, Bev? There we go. Will be supplementing to us. materials that she's used in districts in Chicago. And my won't Chicago's election be interesting today, and it has a whole lot to do with education. Had to get that in there. But it was a really thoughtful conversation, and you'll get your minutes, and we're developing punch lists for next steps. But those of y'all that have ideas, constructive ideas, that won't break the bank and won't break the staff or your hardworking board members, let's hear them from you. And they're open public meetings on Wednesdays and start at 3 o'clock, and they're on the board page. Does that work?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay. Do we have reports from our legislative liaison?
Yes. Can you hear me okay? All right. Thank you. And yes, there is COVID in my household. It is not me. So far, I'm negative and we're all sequestered from each other, but it's definitely not over. So thank you for, I'm grateful for the ability to join remotely. Legislative update is, it's not great. I don't know how different it is from last time. I'm trying to remember what I talked about last time, but just kind of the big items that we've been watching, and so many others have also are special education and pupil transportation. So we're at the point now where the Senate and the House each have their budgets, and we're going to come to a point where final decisions are made, not where we can see them all happening. And so we'll hope for the best going in and see what comes out of budget negotiations. But right now, the Senate adjustments to the multiplier and the cap for special education funding, it does retain a cap of 15%. And we've talked about that before. And the House bill eventually eliminates it, but for next year, it would only go up to 14%. So in the short term, the adjustments to the cap are more beneficial for districts in the Senate bill. The adjustments for the multiplier are definitely more helpful for covering the costs that districts have in this basic education provision. And some of the policy language in the House bill is preferable, as it really states that special education is basic education very unequivocally. But in terms of the funding part, the Senate bill is the one that is moving and is the one that has the increased investments that districts need right now. Pupil transportation, again, the Senate level of funding is preferable to the House. The House doesn't provide additional pupil transportation funding. The last 2 years, the legislature has passed bills to update the STARS formula, which the STARS is the allocation formula or the reimbursement formula that the state uses to pay districts for their transportation costs. Those bills would have updated the formula, haven't been funded. But so this Senate level of investment is a good first step closer to what districts need for transportation costs, especially in the area of what is referred to as special transportation, which would be transportation required by a student's IEP, transportation for students who are covered by McKinney-Vento, and foster students, as those three categories of student often require separate routes that wouldn't be on a neighborhood bus route. So that's a good first step. The really disappointing, to put it lightly, disappointing thing that has happened, or rather not happened, since the last time I reported in a meeting is that House Bill 1479, the isolation and restraint bill, has died in committee. It died in the Senate K-12 and Early Learning Committee, and the whole experience around watching that was really interesting to see how far we have to go in our state Seattle Public Schools has banned isolation as a practice. Director Hersey and I brought that issue forward in 2020, and this board passed it in 2021 to ban isolation as a practice in Seattle Public Schools and limit the use of restraint. The use of restraint is already limited in existing state law. Existing state law limits the use of physical restraint of students to an emergency intervention that's needed to stop, to interrupt or prevent imminent risk of serious physical harm. That hasn't changed. That hasn't changed in state law. That hasn't changed in Seattle Public Schools. We know from a study that was put out by Disability Rights Washington and the ACLU of Washington that physical restraint is overused in school districts across the state. And by overused, I mean it's used not as an emergency intervention, it's used as a disciplinary tool. And so the language in our policy change and in the proposed state bill that is now dead would have emphasized the fact that restraint is a physical crisis intervention. It's not a standard thing in the toolbox that happens when kids aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that is already in state law. What House Bill 1479 would have done, it was reduced, the scope of it was reduced to eliminate isolation only for grades K through 2. It would allow isolation for grades 3 through 12 for another couple of years to be phased out. And I just want to be really super duper clear that isolation doesn't mean a kid spending time alone. Isolation is solitary confinement of a child in a school. These are rooms that have been built explicitly for the purpose of forcibly putting a child into a space from which they cannot leave. Kids vomit, they wet themselves, they pound the walls. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible practice. It is not allowed in Washington State in juvenile detention facilities. It is allowed in public schools in Washington State. Our state legislature could not get it together on this bill to say that is not okay to do to our kids. The other part that it would have banned is chemical and mechanical restraint. Again, those are very specific. Mechanical restraint would be the use of duct tape, zip ties, belts, straps to restrain a child. Chemical restraint is by medication. It's literally injection to involuntarily stop the movement of a child. That is very infrequently used, but it is still used. This bill would have banned as practice isolation immediately, which is solitary confinement of children in K through 2, and phased out the allowance of isolation for grades 3 through 12. And it would have banned mechanical and chemical restraint. They did not have the votes to move that bill forward. So, that is upsetting, depressing. We still disallow it in Seattle Public Schools. The other thing that was important in that bill was that there was specific funding allocated towards training, technical support, and professional development. And a lot of the pushback against the bill was, what do we do instead? It would have provided some of that, and now it is not. And our state is okay with doing this to students for more time. So yeah, kind of a bleak update, but that's where we're at.
Thank you, Director Rankin. Do we have any additional liaison reports this evening? No? Go for it.
It's a liaison report in the sense that I'm holding a community meeting Saturday, April 8th, 2 to 5, with lasagna at the West Seattle Library. Now, the meeting room is a lovely large meeting room downstairs, and it's at 2306 42nd Avenue Southwest. I suspect that we will hear a great deal from folks that are distressed about the Alki Elementary School, as we did last meeting, and I can tell you it was supremely uncomfortable. I suspect that we will be hearing a great deal from other constituencies regarding the Washington Middle School jazz program and band, and probably where we are with respect to some of our ethnic studies classes for next year. And then there's always the happy budget and the legislative issues. The other piece that I wanted to mention right now is the Alliance for Education Annual Gala, which is on April 22nd. And registration closes tomorrow. Now, lots of people have very strong feelings about the Alliance for Education, but please know that they are the only real separate fundraising for the Seattle Public Schools. And they support the Seattle Teachers Residency, which is a hugely important program in terms of retaining our teachers, training our teachers, with a specific emphasis on BIPOC teachers. And as well, they fund right now needs for emergencies in our 106 schools. It's spendy, it's she, but it's worthy. Never thought I'd say that, but I'm happy to do so. Thank you.
Finally, any additional board engagement for us to announce tonight? Cool. Thank you very much. All right, we have now reached the public testimony portion of today's agenda. We will be taking public testimony by phone and in person as stated on the agenda. Board Procedure 1430 BP provides the rules for public testimony, and I ask that speakers are respectful of these rules. I will summarize some important parts of this procedure. First, testimony will be taken today from the individuals called from our public testimony list and, if applicable, the waiting list, which are included on today's agenda on the school board website. Only those who are called by name should unmute their phones or step forward to the podium, and only one person should speak at a time. Speakers from the list may cede their time to another person when the listed speaker's name is called. The total amount of time allowed will not exceed 2 minutes for the combined number of speakers. Time will not be restarted after the new speaker begins, and the new speaker will not be called again later if they are on the testimony list or the waiting list. Those who do not wish to have their time ceded to them may decline and retain their place on the testimony wait list. The majority of the speaker's time should be spent on the topic they have indicated they wish to speak about. The board expects the same standard of civility for those participating in public comment as the board expects of itself. As board president, I have the right to and will interrupt any speaker who fails to observe the standard of civility required by Board Procedure 1430 BP. A speaker who refuses or fails to comply with these guidelines or who otherwise substantially disrupts the orderly operation of this meeting may be asked to leave. Finally, we had a technical issue with today's testimony list and will call additional names to make sure that we hear from all those included in the originally posted list as well as the corrected list. It is unlikely that we will hear from speakers from our waiting list today. Given that we have so many people joining today, all speakers will need to adhere to the 2-minute speaking time and conclude when you hear a beep or see the red light. I will prompt speakers to conclude if you exceed this time. I'm usually very lenient with this, as if you all have watched meetings in the past, I want to hear as much from folks as possible. But given that we have 35 speakers on our list where we normally have 20, I am going to have to be very strict on the time because we want to make sure that we hear from as many people as possible. So please, try to stick to the time. I don't want to be put into a position to have to gavel you down. All right, Ms. Koo will read off the testimony speakers.
Thank you, President Hersey. A quick logistical note, speakers joining us by phone, please remain muted until your name is called to provide testimony. When your name is called, please be sure you have unmuted on the device you are calling from, and also press *6 to unmute yourself on the conference call line. Each speaker will have a 2-minute speaking time. You will hear a beep when your time is exhausted, and the next speaker will be called. The first speaker on the list is Luke McNally Crane.
My name is Luke, and I'm in 7th grade. I'm here to talk about Washington music. I play trombone jazz band, and I'm a band TA. We are going from 2 to 1 music teachers. When I learned that we are losing a band teacher and jazz band is going away, I was surprised. I feel that both of these things are essential to our school. At my time at Washington, I've had 2 math teachers leave and 6 math teachers in total, so you could hardly say it has been a successful school experience. Losing part of the music program is not going to help to make it a better or a good school experience. Is probably not going to make it better, and it's not going to be as good of a school experience. The band teacher is my favorite teacher, and it's my favorite class. And I like band because it's interesting and it's just different from what we usually have, and it's like one of the reasons why I like going to school in general. So yeah, that's my. Also, I have these papers that I'm supposed to pass out to everybody on the board, so I don't know where I'm supposed to get these. Thank you.
The next speaker is Charlotte Morrison Wong. Charlotte, if you're on the line, please press *6 to unmute.
Hello, I'm Charlotte Morrison Wong. I'm a 6th grader at Washington Middle School, and I've been playing the violin for 3 years. On the first day of school, I walked into the orchestra room only knowing a few pieces, and by the end of the week, I had learned amazing songs and made amazing friends. I have had a truly wonderful experience with the music program overall. But this program has not just helped me improve my skill with my instrument, it helped me with my math by counting notes. It helped me work together with other students to stay together in a hard section, a skill that are needed since the pandemic prevented them from developing. It even taught me a few words in Italian. Part of the reason I have had such a good experience is because the program gives all students so much personal attention, but cutting a band and an orchestra would leave us with 60 kids in concert orchestra and nearly 130 in concert band. There's no way even the best teacher could instruct this many kids and not have the quality go down. The music program is most likely the greatest part of Washington, and losing this would be horrible. Thank you.
The next speaker is Parker Collins.
I'm Parker, and I'm in 7th grade at Washington Middle School. I'm surprised and worried to hear that our music program is planned to have major faculty cuts. I play the tuba in concert band, and I've been playing with Mr. Sunt for 2 years now. I've always looked forward to band class as part of my day. In fact, it's my favorite class. I think that by eliminating our band director, many people who may want to would not be able to express themselves through music. Some people in a band are just different people than outside it. I love doing performances, and I think working towards something the entire year and then absolutely crushing it is a great feeling. Music just makes school more fun and engaging for me. Being able to play a good part with someone together brings the whole band closer. Music teaches me persistence, patience, collaboration, and confidence. Please do not make this drastic cut to our music program. Kids like me will never discover these things if band isn't able to be offered to all who want to take it. You would truly be taking away the best thing about my school.
Next speaker is Joe Chick.
Hello, my name is Joe Chick, and I'm in the 6th grade and play the drums in both concert and jazz band at Washington Middle School. My entire life, music has held a special place in my heart. whether it was screaming the lyrics to Nirvana's In Bloom in the car with my dad as a 4-year-old, or singing the album Special by Lizzo this past summer with my sister. While neither of my parents are musicians, I've always felt a connection and a level of self-expression created by music. After drifting around a few different instruments, I started playing drum set in 5th grade and was instantly hooked. As somebody who struggled with mental health significantly, the music program at WMS has been unbelievably life-changing. When anxiety would become debilitating and keep me from engaging with the world or even getting up in the morning, band class was always there. A safe, loving environment, welcome and open to anyone, where we could all focus on our music and community. I'm doing so much better now, and I believe that this program, all the friends I've made along the way, and the pure joy of playing an instrument has contributed greatly to my recovery. I believe that this music community created at WMS would be negatively impacted with these larger class sizes due to the proposed budget cuts. If we kept this program alive at the level it is now, I truly believe we could inspire and empower so many more students who struggle with similar issues. Thank you for your time. And I have a few documents I would like to. Yeah. Thank you.
The next speaker is Theodore Rivard.
Hello, my name is Theo Rivard. I am in 7th grade and I play the trombone in concert band. I was planning on next year going to jazz band, but it will now be cut. The band program the band program is only cut to 5 classes, there will be larger class sizes and concert band will have over 100 kids if everybody returns. And if jazz band is moved after school, then less people will have access because they will not have a way home if they take the bus and have no other way to get there and back. That is all.
The next speaker is Silas Collins.
I'd like to cede my time to my dad, Doug Collins.
Hello, my name is Doug Collins, and I'm a parent to one student currently at Washington Middle School and another that is alumni of Washington. Both students have participated in band since 4th grade. They thrive in the band and jazz programs. They've made friends, been challenged, pushed themselves, and developed a lifelong skill and appreciation of music. In my remarks, I don't want to dwell on Mr. Sant, the Washington Middle School band leader whose position is being eliminated. However, let me say that his enthusiasm and positivity have been incredible for my kids' music development. They now blast Snarky Puppy and other jazz fusion bands at home. My youngest talks about the upcoming pieces that Mr. Sant has decided to challenge them with. Schools are as good as their teachers, and in my opinion, when you get one like Mr. Sant, you should figure out how to keep them. A few months ago, a Seattle Times editorial commented on the quiet leaving from Seattle Public Schools. The author of that editorial said that when students went online for homeschool during the pandemic, parents got to see more closely what their kids were doing in school, and for many it was lacking. Some, with the means to do so, have gravitated toward private schools, and I suspect that is a factor in the quandary we now find ourselves. There are, of course, forces that balance what some parents saw as a lack of rigor in some classes, elements of the public school experience that we know build connections across socioeconomic boundaries, experiences that pull kids together in democratizing experiences. Band is one of these experiences, one of the gyms. I know the budget is tight. I know hard decisions have to be made, but I urge you to do what you can to avoid a spiral of fewer students, less money, fewer attractive programs, and again, fewer students. This is more than one band program at one middle school. It's part of the ecosystem that supports the award-winning and national renowned Garfield program. It's the estuary where kids have the opportunity to encounter an impassioned teacher and create something beautiful.
The next speaker is Tejal Armis.
Hi, my name is Tejal Arms, and I'm a 5th grader at Thurgood Marshall Elementary School. Jazz is beautiful and it has deep roots in my community. The Central District or the CD. I love jazz, and I have been getting ready for middle school jazz for 2 years. I play the drums and trombone. I have such a good time being at my sister's high school concerts. And the jazz is so much fun. And why would you take that away from some kids who want to learn about this beautiful art? Isn't that why we go to school, to find what we love? I go to music on Wednesdays, and it is the highlight of my week and day. I feel like there is only one music teacher. I won't get a chance to have music as a 6th grader. I'm mad and sad about this cut, and I hope you can do something about it. Thank you.
The next speaker is Owen Hefter.
Hello, I'm Owen, and I play percussion and saxophone at Washington Middle School. From an early age, I never had any preference or connection to music. My parents required me to play an instrument at school. They said it was good for your brain or something like that. Stressfully, I started middle school. When my parents told me I had to play an instrument, I decided on percussion. Unexpectedly, being in the band has been my favorite part of the school every day. This program has made me want to get up every day, and I love the accomplishment that music has brought me. Our music program is diverse, and it teaches students important life skills like teamwork, dedication, and coordination. Without our current music program and teachers, I wouldn't have the same friends or motivation to do something with my life. There are several of my classmates who are unable to make it tonight. They are worried about how their countless hours of hard work and practice could all disappear. They fear it could be wasted on some budget squabble not many will remember in 10 years, but they will remember your decision about this program. Our music program is important to the Central District's music legacy. This change would go on to affect students at Washington Middle School, Garfield High School, Franklin High School, and many more. I want to ask you please not to make this cut to our music program. Thank you.
The next speaker is Dov Samuel Trupin.
My name is Dov Trupin. I'm in 6th grade and attend Washington Middle School. I play the flute in beginning band. Band has been one of my favorite classes because it's something I chose to do that I enjoy, and I learn a lot about music in it. Electives like band make my day much more interesting. Band is a class where I can take home what I learn and share it with my community. However, 2 of the 7 unique music electives, about 28.6% of the music electives, will be cut next year without both music teacher positions. Music electives are very important to me and many other people. Please do what you can to save these programs. If you need help telling the legislature why this is important, I will do that too.
The next speaker is Oliver Condit.
My name is Oliver, and I go to Washington Middle School Band and play the flute. Band is a very important part of my day and makes us all feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. And without it, that is not possible. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jonah Perry.
Hello, my name is Jonah Perry, and I'm a 6th grader in Washington Middle School. I play trumpet in concert band, and Mr. Sun is my teacher. When I first heard of the Washington Middle School band program, I instantly knew I wanted to join. When I first met Mr. Sun, he introduced himself and got right into teaching me and the other students. During my first semester in middle school, I became very skilled at the trumpet, and when I was just in beginning band, I chose to be in concert band, which is my current class. Imagine a single teacher teaching a whole class, and some of those students are able to move up to the advanced class in just one semester. This is a very rare thing a teacher can do in a short period of time, while at the same time teaching in a class of at least 30 students. Mr. Sun is a very good and skilled teacher. I understand you don't have enough money to keep a teacher like him, but think about how many kids out there that would dream of being taught an instrument. This band program allows access to a lot of kids to experience an instrument in music. It will not be the same without Mr. Sun, and it will stop kids from experiencing what I've been able to experience this year. I feel lucky that in 6th grade, I've been able to learn how to read music and learn how to play the trumpet. If Mr. Sun is not there next year, then the jazz band will be canceled. I won't be able to meet my goal, and so many other students won't be able to as well. I asked you to keep the music program the same for Washington Middle School so kids like me can continue to reach their goals and learn more about music and band.
Zachary Cannon.
My name is Zachary Cannon. I am here to talk to you guys today about Washington Middle School. Losing a very kind, amazing, funniest teacher would be terrible for the school program and everyone in general. I urge you to please, please keep Mr. Sun, because he is one of the best teachers and he holds a part in all of our hearts. Please keep Mr. Sun. Thank you.
Vivian Thomas Kennedy.
Hello, my name is Vivian Thomas Kennedy. I am a 6th grader at Washington Middle School. I have come here today to talk about the Washington Middle School music program. Our school prides itself on its music program, but due to budget cuts, it will suffer. I am not currently a part of the music program, though I want to be. When or even if I join, it will not be what it is now. Many kids are happy with our music program, but it's going to start falling apart next year. And because of that, many new 6th graders will not be able to experience the amazing music program we have now. Even if a lot of kids join, not all of them will get the one-on-one time that some kids have now. I love music and it helps a lot of people express themselves, and due to the budget being cut, not a lot of kids will get to experience learning to express themselves through music. A lot of kids do not realize the joy of music until they start to learn how to play. Thank you for listening.
Sula Yogi Adams. Hi, Sula, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Celia Yogi Adams, and I'm an 8th grader at Washington Middle School. I've been playing cello in the orchestra program for all 3 years of middle school and have gone through beginning, intermediate, and concert orchestra. All 3 steps in the program have been crucial in my development as a musician. Through my entire experience, I've been able to play music that matches my skill level with peers who are at my skill level. If intermediate music is cut, students will not be able to receive the attention they deserve or be challenged musically. Because of music class, I learned how to play an instrument, I've made friends, and I've become part of an incredible community where we've had the opportunity to perform in concerts, go on field trips, and we've learned how to play in ensembles. Being in the music program has been one of the best experiences I've had at Washington, and I urge the district to do everything you can to preserve the current music program. Thank you for listening.
The next speaker is Miranda Riskusich White. Miranda, if you're on the line, please press *6 to unmute. The next speaker is Veronica Briggs.
My My name is Veronica Briggs, and I'm a sixth grader at Washington Middle School, and I play percussion. Before I begin, I want to say that I'm here in solidarity with speakers coming up in our agenda who are concerned about the loss of Filipinx courses. I am here to talk about Washington music. Music is a vital part of my life, and I believe that everyone can learn and enjoy it regardless of age, race, gender, etc. Before coming to Washington Middle School, I was learning music by myself. Then I joined Washington Music's beginning band, and it changed my life. I discovered my love for percussion and made new friends. Band not only taught me musical skills, but also gave me a positive and supportive environment to learn in. I can confidently say that without band, my life would be very different. Washington Middle School's music program is a crucial part of the school day, and without it, students would miss out on the numerous benefits and opportunities that WMS music program provides. Thank you.
Next speaker is Sadira Riali. Sadira, if you're on the line, please press star 6 to unmute. The next speaker is Brendan Sullivan. Brendan, if you're on the line, please press star 6 to unmute.
Hi, my name is Brenda Sullivan. I go to Washington Middle School, and I'm in the 6th grade. I'm in concert band, and my teacher is Mr. Sun. I've played the trumpet for a couple of years now, but only became interested this year. When I heard about the music program being cut in half, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Music has become a big part of my life since the beginning of the school year, and I'm not sure I'd want to stay at Washington without it. I planned on joining jazz band next year, but I won't be able to now that it's being canceled. Many of us have put in hundreds of hours into our instruments. Our band teacher, Mr. Sun, plays every instrument and has been nominated for awards. The Washington music program will not be the same without him. Please reconsider this decision.
The next speaker is Lillian Collette.
Hi, my name is Lily Collett. I'm a junior at Garfield High School, and I'm part Filipino, and I'm a student in the district-wide Filipinx American History class that debuted this year and is listed to be cut by next year. I feel that it's critically important to save this class because it has helped me feel more connected to Filipino culture and history and has given me a connection to the community. It has taught me so much. One of my favorite projects was our family history project. I interviewed one of my family members who came to the US from the Philippines about her life. It was an amazing experience because without the class, I would have never taken the time to ask her those questions. Hearing how what she told me tied directly to what I was learning in class was so interesting and surprising, and I had never experienced something like that in a class before. Filipinx American history has given me so much knowledge, it has expanded my worldview, and it has given me a strong sense of community. Other students deserve to experience the joy of learning their own history and being represented in their history class. Please do not cut Filipinx American US history. We also have a petition to save the class that has gained over 750 signatures since being published, and I have it with me. And finally, I want to add that we stand with Washington Middle School Jazz Program, and we ask you to meet their demands as well as ours. Isang Baksak! Thank you.
The next speaker is Sinead Payne. Sinead, if you're on the line, please press star six to unmute.
Sorry, just checking again that you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks so much. My name is Sinead Payne. I'm 18 years old and a senior at Ingram High School. I wanted to share my experience with my ethnic studies course, Filipino American U.S. History. The news that you'll be discontinuing so many of the ethnic studies classes was very alarming and disappointing to me. As a white person in a predominantly white school, I feel it is very important that we have more classes and education that promotes anti-colonial narratives. Growing up in honors classes where many people of many backgrounds were not represented, it was obvious that this lack of diversity was impacting the way me and my classmates interact with the world. The only opportunities for cultural experiences and understanding narratives other than the normalized white culture in our nation, state, and city have been outside of school on my own time and with my own efforts. This is a problem. Creating classes that better represent the countless communities that make up our city would only serve to benefit students, whether it be a safe space for people of color, in particular Filipino students, to have their voices heard, or a space where otherwise ignorant students such as myself can begin to see the world in a more complete way. This class is beautifully run by Tiana Anderson. She organizes field trips, brings in guest speakers, and finds ways to help every student connect with the knowledge we're learning. This class is one of the only ones I have taken throughout high school that makes me feel as if I'm learning something important and that my knowledge matters. So your efforts to stop these classes due to budget cuts after only a year of their existence, despite decades of efforts to put them in place, does not surprise me, but it is still heartbreaking. The purpose of school is to raise children into functional and knowledgeable adults, and learning how to think critically and learning how to listen to voices other than your own are some of the most important skills I can hope to grow. By removing these classes from the district, I feel you are failing me and the students to come. Thank you for your time. Yeah. Isang bagsak.
We were notified that Marlo Van Lai is not able to join us today, so the next speaker on the list is Anvita Chandra.
Hi, my name is Anvita and I'm a 6th grader at Washington Middle School. Until I joined concert orchestra, music was something I only did because I had to, not because I wanted to. But now orchestra has become something I look forward to when I wake up in the morning. I would even say it's my favorite part of the school day. Our music program allowed me to be part of an amazing, welcoming community. It has helped us learn to love and appreciate music. If this program gets cut, we are taking away one of the best things at Washington Middle School, as well as the opportunity for future students to experience what I and many other students got to experience. Thank you.
Next speaker is Sayer Williams.
Hi, my name's Sayer Williams. I'm a straight A student at Washington. I play multiple instruments and sports. Man, whew. Despite of all of that, the admin at the school also try to label me of sorts and say things that aren't true. Jazz is my way of getting away from all that drama that they put on top of my head. And I heard that it was gonna cut. I was sad, honestly. Man, Mr. Sun is a good teacher. He's like somebody you could always talk to. He's somebody that's there for you. Like, no matter what it is, he's there and he'll talk. Jazz is important to my cultural heritage as a black young man. And SPS has said that they're committed to pursuing educational justice for black male students, reducing funding for our school cutting our band program does not provide the needs and for other students, and it's not educational justice for black students. By taking away jazz band, SPS is robbing me of a full let me take a deep breath. It's like they're robbing my academic experience, and I urge SPS to do better by me and fellow students. Thank you.
The next speaker is Nora Ignacio.
Hello, I'm Nora Ignacio. I am a sixth grader at Washington Middle School, and I play clarinet in beginning band. When I was a fifth grader, I loved music, and I still do. And the main reason I wanted to come to Washington was because I've heard of its incredible music program. Our jazz band has had long history. It's taught people like Quincy Jones. Our students have graduated into Garfield's jazz band, and they've all grown to be amazing musicians. We all love music in a way, and jazz band and all of our orchestras help us connect with each other. It's made lots of friends, and I have lots of friends that can't be here right now that also had something to say, and I'm also partly speaking for them. I love music so much, and it's helped me figure out who I am as a person, figure out my feelings, my vibe, and everything that I am. Thank you.
The next speaker is Chris Jackins.
My name is Chris Jackins, Box 84063, Seattle 98124. Thank you all for being here. You're doing a wonderful job. On the March 8th minutes, moving board policy into superintendent procedures harms the public by dodging requirements for public notice. On the $1.8 million budget transfer to the Lincoln Project, the board is voting to approve expenditures that have already occurred. Is this proper oversight? On the City Parks Department contracts, please discuss the agreement to share student phone numbers, gender, race, and discipline history with parks. On district plans for Memorial Stadium, I oppose these plans. 3 points as described. Memorial Stadium will be turned over to a private group and transformed, quote, into an airy new venue for concerts, cultural events, World Cup training, and professional soccer, in addition to high school sports and graduation ceremonies, unquote. Number 2, this makes a mockery of honoring Seattle School alumni who died in World War II, and it loses the central focus on students. Number 3, the naming rights can be sold as long as the word memorial is kept. How about memorial potato chips? On proposed construction projects at Alki, Montlake, and Rogers, each project is too big for its site. Loss of playground space, loss of trees, zero parking, not even for ADA. Please change these plans. I have spoken to the board and district staff, presented a number of ideas for more money. These people are right. You can find the money. You've never gotten back to me about the ideas I've mentioned to you. There are 4 of the 7 seats on the school board up for election this year. I hope everybody's thinking about that. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Tilly Wakefield. Tilly, if you're on the line, please press *6 to unmute. The next speaker on the list is Ann McNally.
Thank you for serving on the school board. My sign really says it all. Come for band, stay for math. My son is in 7th grade, and we live a block from Washington. He's never really loved school, and the pandemic didn't help. He took up the trombone. It was his idea via Zoom, and joined Washington's beginner band, and it was by far his favorite class, just like all these other kids. In 7th grade, he announced he's joining jazz band, and then halfway through 7th grade, he announced he's also a band TA for a 6th grade band. So he has really taken to band in a way he's taken to few other things in his time in Seattle Public Schools since kindergarten. And now he's telling me we need to go to concerts at the town hall, we need to go to the Royal Room, we need to go see Sire, absolutely amaze everybody at the Hot Java Cool Jazz concert on Friday night. That was amazing. Band has really brought this kid to life in a way that makes me very grateful. And I just want to end with saying that we all know there's a link between people's sense of belonging and their mental health. And when you're a band kid, the band room is your place. That is going to keep you sane. And, you know, we've been reading in the newspapers, keep you maybe out of an emergency room. Like, kids who love band will stay in school and keep at it. Kids have to have something they're into, and for these kids, band is it. Thank you.
The next speaker is Scott Crane.
Hello, I'm Scott. My son already spoke, but I think you need to hear from more of these kids about what the budget cuts are doing to their lives and why we need to keep school interesting. So, Omar, want my space?
Hello, my name is Omar, and I'm a 7th grader at Washington Middle School. Mr. Sun's one of my favorite teachers. Actually, he is my favorite teacher, and I don't think it would be that fair if we were to do all these budget cuts, because there would be way too many kids for Mr. Hartley, the orchestra teacher, to handle, since I also have classes with him, and he can't really even handle our class, which isn't really that big. But Mr. Sun, he can already handle a whole bunch of people, and like what Sayer said, you can talk to him whenever you want to, and yeah, and like he's a really good teacher. He can, like, somebody can join in the beginning of the year as a beginner, and then they already move up to concert band and they play really good at their concerts. And music is also a very good way to help other people, like, find new friends and stuff. For like new 6th graders, like if they don't know anybody there, like let's say they moved and they join like a music program, they're probably gonna make friends, because most people in the music program are very kind and will be friends with really anyone. Thank you.
The next speaker is Sharon Kosla.
I left my notes at home because I honestly didn't think I was going to be able to speak today. The kids have really said why band at Washington Middle School and jazz is so important to it, but I just want to remind you of some history of Washington Middle School. I don't know if any of you remember when this school, when 600 families left the building to go back to Meany. All the affluent families left the building, and this school has not recovered from that. And to take the jazz program away is injury to insult to injury. Over and over again, this school has experienced so much trauma. And for next year, the TAF program is gone, 8 staff people and the jazz program in the middle of the Central District, where jazz is at the roots of the history there. And you don't understand what Mr. Sessink, Mr. Sun, Mr. Saunders have been doing. They have been moving the dial on equity here. They made it so that kids can play jazz, all kids. They bought new instruments, high quality instruments. They made it so that you don't have to try out anymore. They opened it up to all the kids. And I just wanted to remind you of that history of how much trauma this school has gone through in the past 6 years. And it's not fair to do it with the kids and families in the building. So if you want to do that, if you want to gut the school, change your mind, consolidate the schools, and give the kids all the resources they need, including the ethnic studies and the Filipino X studies, all of it, because they deserve it.
The next speaker is Robin Schwartz. Robin, if you're on the line, please press *6 to unmute. The next speaker on the list is Maria Monroe DeVita.
Pardon? Is that possible? Is there a student who would like to speak today?
Hello, my name is Theo Hazelwood. I play trombone and tenor tuba in Washington Middle School's band. I feel that taking away the jazz band program is taking away a massive opportunity for me and all my fellow students. At my school, until I went to Washington, I felt that school was a chore that I had to do every day. But since I've gone to band, I've felt that it's more of an experience that I need to do in order to learn the skills that I need to learn in order to live a life. I ask you to keep our band program as it is. I hope that my speech will help even just a little to keep me and my fellow students looking forward to school every day. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Beth Purcell. Beth Purcell. Beth, if you're on the line, please press *6 to unmute. The next speaker is Lindsay Gilbert. Lindsay, if you're on the line, please press *6 to unmute. The next speaker is Greg Rudolph.
I'd like to cede my time to my son, Ness Rudolph.
Hi, my name is Ness Rudolph. I'm in 6th grade at Washington Middle School. This year at Washington Middle School, I've enjoyed a lot of fun times. Waking up every day knowing I had another challenge in the band room waiting for me is something that I long for. This year's band class has meant a lot to me. I came in to jazz band, the youngest and least experienced, yet I still strive for greatness. Before joining middle school, music had always been like a burden to me. I never really felt like I wanted to be part of the culture so much as to be forced to be in it. This year, however, I've wanted to practice trying to be the best I can. I would do so for so much as 3 hours just so I could do what I love. Cutting the music program in half would not only take away my favorite class, but would destroy the potential for others to experience the joy of what I got to feel this year. And I hope to be able to have that same feeling next year. Thank you.
The next speaker is Michelle Benatua. Michelle Benatua. Michelle, if you're on the line, please press *6 to unmute. Before we conclude today's testimony, I want to go back and check on those who may have missed their turn. The first is Miranda Raskusich-White. Miranda Raskusich-White.
Hi, my name is Miranda Raskusich-White. I'm a 7th grader in the jazz band at Washington Middle School. And last year, I was in concert band, and I struggled with music sometimes because I couldn't really hear the notes in my head and it frustrated me a lot because it was easier for other students than it was for me. And this year in jazz band has really helped me with that and really made me feel more confident in my music skills. And I'd like to keep developing them, but if I don't have access to jazz band, that's a resource that has really helped me that's just been taken out of my life. Thank you.
Next is Sadira Riali. Sadira Riali. Next is Tilly Wakefield. Tilly Wakefield. Next is Robin Schwartz. Robin Schwartz. Next is Beth Purcell. Beth Purcell. This concludes today's testimony.
Thank you very much. Yeah, go for it. Thank you all so much for coming out and sharing your perspectives and spending some time with us this evening. We, as board directors, this isn't a great opportunity for two-way conversation, but we're going to take a 10-minute recess so that directors can do what you need to do. And if you would like to speak with some of the folks that are here, please make sure that you do so. And we will return sharply at 5:36. Whether you're here or not, we're going to get started. So thank you very much, and we'll see you here shortly. All right, directors, if you can hear my voice, we are going to try to come on back. We're already a little bit over. We've got a lot to get through tonight. We want to make sure that we keep it on. Great. I believe we have a forum, at least between in person and online. Okay, so brief update off script. I'm going to be very clear here. There will be a very specific communication about the state of Filipino studies that is coming out from senior staff tomorrow. We want to make sure that we have all the right information, but please, we will make sure that all of the organizers that were so great in bringing the youth here tonight get a communication, but I believe I'm trying to make sure that my words are measured here. There will be a communication that comes out tomorrow. Please be on the lookout for it. And if you don't receive it, I'm going to go ahead and can staff help support me by getting business cards for me out, just so that I can make sure that information gets relayed if it does not land. Okay, so thank you so much for being here tonight. We thoroughly appreciate your time and the effort that it took to get down here, and we hope to see you again. Have a wonderful evening. Okay. That concludes our public testimony for the meeting. Thank you for your comments. We have now reached the consent portion of today's agenda. May I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Approval of the consent agenda has been moved by Vice President Rankin and seconded by Director Sarju. Do directors have any items they would like to pull from the consent agenda this evening? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, this passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we have now reached the action items portion of today's agenda, of which I believe we have two. May I have a motion for the first action item?
Yes. I move that the school board approve the superintendent's school emergency closure applications to OSPI, which requests permission for Seattle Public Schools to not make up 2 missed school days at Ingram High School, November 9th through 10th, 2022, and 1 missed day at Nathan Hale High School, Robert Eagle Staff Middle School, Cascadia Elementary, and Wedgwood Elementary Schools on November 30th, 2022, at Wedgwood Elementary School on December 1st, 2022, at Rainier Beach High School on December 14th, 2022, at Cleveland High School on January 10th, 2023, and at Catherine Blaine K-8 on February 13th, 2023. Immediate action is in the best interest of the district.
I second.
All right, this has been moved by Director Rankin and seconded by Director Sarju. Mr. Podesta, please take it away.
Thank you, Fred Podesta, Interim Deputy Superintendent. The district is allowed by OSPI to request emergency waivers to not make up particular school days due to unforeseen operational events. As was outlined in the motion, There are 7 days total across a variety of schools. Ingram High School was closed for 2 days, November 9th and 10th, following the tragic shooting of a student there. On November 30th and December 1st, there were some regional power outages that affect our ability to open multiple schools. On December 14th, there was a very specific and targeted threat of violence at Rainier Beach High School, and in collaboration with Seattle Police Department, we decided it was in the interest of safety of the students to close the school that day. On January 10th, there was a buildup of gas in Cleveland High School due to some gas devices, valves being inadvertently left open, and the school could not be cleared to operate safely that day. So we are ready with these applications. We're asking for intro and action at this meeting so we can get the applications into the, we try to bring these to the board late enough in the school year so we kind of understand what our needs are, particularly over the winter months. But now there is some latency in the process at OSPI, so we would appreciate intro and action if the board supports these applications.
Thank you, Mr. Podesta. Are there any questions on this item before we move to the vote?
This is Director Rankin. I have a question.
Go for it.
Thanks. Just briefly, it is almost the end of the school year, but if there were to some other power outage or some other thing, would we would just have to see this item again? We would. If there were more between now and the end of the year?
Yes, actually that happened last year where you approved an application and then we had to amend it with one additional application.
So when we do that, are they separate applications or do they become part of the same application?
Each application is actually separate.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move to the vote? All right, seeing none, Ms. Wilson-Jones.
Director Rivera-Smith.
Aye.
Director Sarju.
Aye.
Director Song Moritz.
Aye.
Director Hampson.
Aye.
Director Harris. Aye. Vice President Rankin.
Aye.
President Hersey.
Aye.
This motion is passed unanimously.
Thank you. May I have a motion for action item number 2? Approval of the 2021-24 collective bargaining agreement between Seattle School District Number 1 and International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, AFL-CIO Lodge Number 160, Local Number 289.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the 2021-2024 collective bargaining agreement between Seattle School District Number 1 and Machinists Local 289 and authorize the superintendent on behalf of the Board of Directors to execute the agreement in the form attached to the school board action report with any minor additions, deletions, and modifications deemed necessary by the superintendent and to take any necessary actions to implement the terms of this agreement. Immediate action is in the best interest of the district.
Second.
This item has been moved and properly seconded. I will pass it over to sorry, I have a brain fart going on.
That's all right. Director of Labor Relations, Tina Mead.
Yes, yes. I was about to say Director Tina, but me just escaped me.
It
Sorry.
can work too. I'm looking for my 2-minute timeline. Like, I got to hurry up with this.
I know. Take it away. Thank you.
Certainly, I want to take this first opportunity to thank our respective bargaining teams. So for the machinists, it was the business representative, Steve Miller, and 2 employees, Voon Nguyen and Ray Halibert Noriega. For the SPS bargaining team, my predecessor, Director of Labor Relations, Lance King, then myself, Frank Griffin, Linda Sebring, Lorraine Wilson, and Colleen Carlson. As you probably read from the board action report, this is the successor CBA for the Machinist 289, which unfortunately expired in August of 2021. So they've been working without a contract since September 1st of 2021. We were able to get a 3-year contract that is retroactive to last school year and then spans through next school year, or next fiscal year, I should say, actually. Of course, the major substantive changes, the wage rates for the employees, again, retroactive to September 1st, 2021. we were able to get within our authority, and then for next school year, it's whatever the legislature determines for IPD. There was a increase to their tool allowance, annual tool allowance. Some of the changes were around some current practices of the district. There was an addition of 2 paid holidays, one for the Juneteenth holiday, which we'd previously obtained mutual agreement through a Memorandum of Understanding, and then an added paid holiday for the day after Christmas. This actually aligns with our Northwest Building Trades, carpenters, and a subgroup within IUOE Local 302 are alarm monitors. What else? And then an aspect with respect to if they hold a commercial driver's license, they need to abide by federal drug testing requirements, and so those would be done during the workday. What else? From the bar, you could see the financial impact to the district budget. One of the pieces in terms of to allay some of the budget deficit was that 0.4 of an FTE will not be filled. So we currently have a 0.4 vacancy that will actually go away. So any questions?
Thank you, Director Mead. Do we have any questions on this item before we move forward to the vote? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Wilson-Jones, roll call, please.
Director Sarju,
Aye.
Director Song Moritz,
Aye.
Director Hampson,
Aye.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Vice President Rankin,
Aye.
Director Rivera-Smith,
Aye.
President Hersey.
Aye.
This motion is passed unanimously.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. We appreciate it. Okay, we will now move on to the introduction items on today's agenda. Introduction item number 1. The first introduction item is approval of the Seattle Public Schools proposal for Washington State School Directors Association legislative positions. Vice President Rankin is sponsoring this item as our legislative liaison and will be presenting.
Thank you. So every year, the Washington State School Directors Association, also known as WASDA, has a process for districts to submit proposals to legislative positions to be considered and included for advocacy by the full WASDA membership. It's a very similar process to what PTA does. There's a period to submit possible positions, and then the membership in this case is school board directors across all school board directors in Washington State vote on whether or not to adopt, amend, or remove existing legislative positions. So, and then once these positions are approved by membership, they become the platform by which any member of WASDA and the WASDA advocacy team are authorized to advocate for on behalf of the entire WASDA body. So there were, in legislative session now, there are, a number of positions that WASDA, or a number of bills that WASDA supported, and in some cases, though fewer opposed, based on the existing legislative platform. So every year there's a process for districts to submit changes or additions for the next year's cycle. And that window for positions to be adopted on or to be voted on in the fall opens this year on April 17th and closes on May 12th. So for us to submit any on behalf of our full board, we have to take action in public meeting, and we have to do that obviously before the window so we can get the submissions in before May 12th. In the past, WASDA has had it so that individual board directors or a full board could submit positions. They've changed that this year. So this is the first year that they're not accepting individual director positions. They will accept positions submitted on behalf of an entire board. So that is why we are talking about it here today in the meeting. And we haven't had a really clear process. The SPS board hasn't for doing this, or I'm trying to get this into our calendar so that I know last year it, took some of us by surprise that suddenly it was the time to do that, and we sort of missed that opportunity. So I'm excited about bringing these 4 proposals to you all before or today. And we had some discussion in some previous public meetings about this process coming. I asked any director who was interested to send any suggestions or positions. And what we have now is these 4. So I don't know, they're in the packet. I don't think I need to read the individual positions unless somebody wants me to, but the 4 positions are: 1 is to repeal a position that is at-risk students. I looked through all of the existing positions, and if I was going to sit down and make it my job to refine and clarify the entire WASDA position, I would have more suggestions than these 4, but I went and looked at it from a stance of our board priorities and policy that has risen to a high level of importance for us, and tried to look for where those may or may not be represented in WASDA positions. So the at-risk student position, as it says in the notes there, uses really kind of outdated and harmful language. It uses at risk, at risk of what? At risk from what? It's a really negative categorization of students. And the purpose, I believe, of the position was to make sure to provide equitable support to students who may be impacted by a variety of factors. That purpose is better illustrated, in my opinion, in some other existing positions. So my recommendation would be that we suggest that WASDA consider repealing this position. I will say that of all of these 4, that's the one I feel the least strongly about. It just sort of stood out as glaringly outdated. But the other 3 are 1, 2, there's a current position about board development. And so I wanted to add some into that to have clearer language about effective board governance. It's just sort of said board directors should get training to be competent. And so I thought we should really add what that competency means, and what, that some training may be more valuable than others for the purposes of becoming an effective board member and governance team. Shoreline Public Schools has indicated interest in co-submitting that with us. And then the other 2 are both related to physical crisis intervention. So one suggestion or one proposal is adding a line in the comprehensive school safety position that includes that part of school safety is student education and approaches to discipline that are free from unnecessary physical intervention and harm. And something that I added later based on some feedback from Spokane that I thought was a really, really good suggestion was to add evidence-based into the introductory paragraph of that. I think especially given, oh gosh, I mean, just things that are happening everywhere, including in Seattle. There's a lot of responses to safety and discipline and things that become like ideological or political that are actually not supported by evidence that shows what works and what doesn't. And so I felt it was important to add that in, that Washington State directors should that the association should support evidence-based safety plans. And then the last one is to create a new standalone position after the failure of 1479 standalone position to support advocacy to eliminate unnecessary restraint and isolation and provide resources to implement alternatives. WASDA currently supported the bill, but they supported it under the umbrella of just student safety and well-being. So having this specific standalone position would give more direct, if it's approved by membership, would give more direct allowance to WASDA to specifically support eliminating or reducing these harmful practices. And Shoreline and Spokane are both interested in co-sponsoring that one. So today's introduction, the final approval would be next board meeting. And if the positions are approved, I will then submit the final language to WASDA. That will go to WASDA legislative staff that will develop the positions to put up for vote to the WASDA membership in the fall. And if there are any questions or comments or amendment suggestions,
thank you, Director.
Now is the time.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. So, Director Harris, go right ahead.
Thank you so much. And Director Rankin, thank you for doing the heavy lifting on both legislative and on WASDA this year. It's been noticed and hugely appreciated. My question to you is, we have talked many times over many years about whether or not it is appropriate for some of the larger school districts to have paid board members. Right now, for those of all listening, $50 a day per diem to a total of $4,800 a year, which works out to about 10 cents an hour if we're doing our jobs, she says sarcastically and purposefully. We've talked about it. We've talked about it in retreats. We've talked about the fact that with that kind of a per diem and lack of any kind of a salary whatsoever, retired, wealthy people can run for the board. If you are working another job that impacts your employment in a very, very big way. And here's the personal part of it, and it's one that will probably make me cry. But 2 days before Marty McLaren died, she sent me an email and told me to get off my butt and get that taken care of. It's outrageous. Our citizen legislature is paid. All of our port folks are paid. If you want good, quality people to run for school board, you need to be able to somehow support them. Now, I'm not talking about big bucks. I'm not talking about all 295 school districts, which again just blows my mind that in this state we have 295 school districts and about 5 levels of bureaucracy in this state. State board, OSPI, yada, 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 yada. But those of us here that are busting our backsides and trying really hard with very, very few tools, and usually read about what our district is doing in the newspaper, it's unconscionable. And I thought that we, as a board, had discussed that at some length in retreats, and I know I sent you an email, so I guess I'm wondering, can we put together an amendment? Because in years past, and the executive director of WASDA has always says, well, you know, Director Harris, that's a really good idea, but we don't have a legislative position on it. And Senator Reuven Carlisle, formerly of the 36, used to introduce that legislation every year in recognition of people working hard without compensation and how it affects their employment or their ability to even think about being a school board director, and what good old Senator Reuven Carlisle, and he and I don't agree on very darn much, WASDA blocked it every time. So I'd really like us to put up or shut up on that particular issue. Thank you.
So I can, I had emailed you during my request process for people to send me suggestions what the existing position is. The existing position that WASDA has under a position that is attract, retain, recruit, something, I can't remember the exact title, diverse school directors. So within that position, the advocacy is to allow school districts the option of providing a school board director salary to eliminate a resource barrier, requiring that the choice around receiving compensation is an opt-out instead of an opt-in, allowing board directors to access school district or state elected official benefits by clearly defining board directors as elected officials associated with their school district, providing or reimbursing for childcare to board members during all school board functions and to the community during all public meetings to eliminate a barrier to participation, and initiating and maintaining state funding to provide equitable distribution of school board director salary, benefits, and childcare. So if you have any language or suggestions for amendments, I'm happy to add those to the position packet.
Deal. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this one before we move on to introduction item number 2? Lit. Okay, so intro item number 2. The second introduction item is amendment of board policy numbers 3231, student records, 3510, associated student bodies, 3520, student fees, charges, fines, restitution, and damage deposits, 6800, safety operations and maintenance of school property, and board procedure 3520 BP, student fees, charges, fines, restitution, and damage deposits, and repeal of board policy number 3233, fees for copies of student records. This item addresses compliance with state law in 2 areas. The first is that we have board policies that refer to past practice of withholding grades or transcripts when a student has unpaid fines or fees. Withholding grades and transcripts isn't a current practice, and under House Bill 1176, which is attached to the board action report, we aren't allowed to do this under state law anyway. The second area of compliance cleanup is with our student fees policy. House Bill 1660, also attached to the board action report, requires that the district have a waiver process in place for certain extracurricular fees and that this waiver process be stated in board policy. We do have a practice of providing waivers, but it is not yet reflected in policies. I expect directors to have interest in continued review of these areas of policy as we realign our policy manual to our current governance model and match our vision and values. I didn't have an opportunity to formally sign on as a sponsor because of unavailability on the day we finalize these materials. But I have been briefed by staff on this work and support moving forward with these compliance edits now, while holding open that the board may want to do more work in these areas in the future. General Counsel Greg Narver will note a few of the technical aspects and is here for questions. Take it away.
Good evening. This is on, yes, there we go. Good evening, Greg Narver, General Counsel. President Hersey said just about everything that I think I was intending to cover. I am formally introducing the bar for the amendment of the 4 board policies and the board procedure that he listed and the repeal of a 5th board policy. This bar is scheduled for action by the board on April 26th. As President Hersey said, there were 2 important changes to state law, one made in 2020, one made in 2021. One imposed a requirement that school districts adopt a policy for waiving fees for extracurricular activities for certain students, including students receiving free or reduced price meals. The 2021 change placed significant limitations on the ability of school districts to withhold grades or transcripts from students who are responsible for damage to school property. As President Hersey noted, the district is already in compliance with these laws. There's no operational change that's being made through this bar. We don't withhold grades or diplomas for those reasons, and we do provide fee waivers. But the laws also require that districts adopt policy that reflects these changes that have been made in the law, and that's principally what this bar is doing. I am aware, and President Hersey alluded to this as well. I've talked to the staff who have done most of the legwork on this bar. I'm aware that there are additional changes in this area that some directors are interested in making. As I understand it, these may include changes relating to equity considerations with student fees, which is the subject of Policy 3520 and the corresponding board procedure, and also how we implement an equitable process for the waiver of student fees, and that's a subject that's now addressed in Policy 3510. The changes that are proposed in this bar certainly don't preclude making additional changes, either time permitting through an amendment before this bar is voted on in 3 weeks, or in later board action. But because the changes in this bar largely relate to legal requirements driving changes in our policy, the recommendation is to at least make these changes at this time. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Narver. Do we have any questions on this item? I see Director Hampson. Take it away.
Thank you. I think you covered it relatively well, Greg, in terms of, as one of the directors for whom this is an item that has been on the, was on the Audit and Finance Committee agenda for probably 3 years. But it was, COVID hit, and among other fiscal policy revisions became deprioritized in lieu of other priorities related to COVID. So I do want to note, as I did in my comments to the item in anticipation of this meeting, because I just, it just popped up, right, relatively quickly, that we owe it to our students to inquire as to the extent to which they believe, particularly where we have the ASB and the student fees pieces coming forward, if there are things where we can either make amendments now that make these policies much more consistent with our goals and guardrails, aka our vision and values, as well as our strategic plan, and or plan for revisions, let's say by fall, that will create much better alignment with these policies. I think there are, so I met with Director Barone on Sunday. We walked through a lot of it, and we'll have some additional discussions. I don't want to get into too many of the proposed, proposed modifications, because I want to hear first from students. So I encourage our student members and any other students that are interested in seeing some improvement in how we achieve a higher level of functioning with respect to access to ASB, and as well as opportunities to balance the equity of funds that are raised through ASB activities, as well as the fees that are charged students. And a lot of this goes to the fact that we have right now, kind of the students are automatically charged, and then students who don't have the capacity to, whose families don't have the capacity to pay, have to assert their status. And so that's one of the things that I think is of great concern for me, but then also I think there's when you look at differences in fund balances and annual expenditures with ASBs, there's a huge disparity. And we don't currently, and I met with staff. Staff was kind enough to meet with me on this on Monday to get a sense of what my concerns were. And so my hope is to have some, with tremendous focus on what students are wanting to see, the some amount of directional shift in this round with a direction to the superintendent to support bringing forward additional shifts to bring the policies in alignment with our goals and guardrails. Would be open to hearing from other directors if you think, no, absolutely, these are completely in line with our goals and guardrails. And anybody who wants to work offline about it, would love to hear from you as well. Luna and I had a great conversation on Sunday, and are looking forward to bringing home some good recommendations.
Thank you, Director Hampson. Any other questions on this item? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We'll now move to our time use evaluation. Thank you, Director Rankin, for evaluating last meeting and providing the detailed evaluation with today's materials. As directors will recall, we discussed at our February 8th regular board meeting that we would set a goal for March, having 15% of our time spent on student outcomes. Are there takeaways that we'd like to discuss this evening? Director Rankin, just for the record, could you let us know, well, I guess you wouldn't know what our time use evaluation percentage is at this time.
I honestly did this like right after the meeting, so I can't, that was 100 years ago, 2 weeks ago. But one question I did have is, and as I know the community engagement committee is still building a structure, but Director Song-Moritz and I did have a public meeting. I don't know if we want to include that or not, or if we want to wait until we have sort of what the board calendar looks like to include meetings where there's two-way conversation.
Could one of our well-trained governance coaches or someone who served on the ad hoc committee give us some clarity there? Go ahead, Director Hampson.
Unfortunately, I don't think we get to count anything where we don't have a quorum. It has to be the work of the board, so it can't just be two.
Oh, okay.
It's about how we use our time, our scheduled time.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Cool.
And so anytime quorum, that counts, except in closed session.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so as we move forward with this, thank you, Director Sarju, for tracking our time this meeting. And if you need support, please reach out to anyone who's already done it. I will turn it over for a brief overview. Okay, so wait. So we have it in the talking points that I'm going to turn over to her for a brief overview of how we used our time. But she's going to have to go back and look at the thing. So we'll come back next week. We're still trying to get this figured out. I think another big piece. Say again? No, I didn't. I said Song-Moritz. I meant Sarju. We talked about this earlier in the parking lot. I haven't done it. No, I know. We know. That's what we're getting to. So next time, we're going to have a more detailed discussion about how we use our time during this meeting in terms of student outcomes. One piece. Sorry, one more time?
I would say you can give me some tutoring.
Yeah, I got you. Anytime. Though I don't know that I know more than you. One thing that I do want to note is that we do need to get to a point to where we're actively setting a goal for reaching the amount of time that we are spending. I think that that's going to take some conversation and more clarity around how are we doing this process? What does this look like officially? And how do we what does adequate goal setting look like? And what should we be shooting for? Because as we get more and more down to it, it's going to become more difficult for us to make significant progress if the systems in which we're holding our meetings don't necessarily support it. So there might be room for further augmentation. I'm not sure. So I will figure out a forum to do that best. Maybe it's through a work session of some kind, but I'll talk with board staff about what that looks like. So Any questions? Am I missing anything? Director Hampson, you still have your hand up. Is that from before? Or do you have more?
No, I have more.
Go ahead.
I don't think we should be avoiding talking about it. Like, our percentage is really low. Like, whatever we were at is what we should be talking about. So whatever
Agreed.
cumulative percent.
Yep.
We should be reviewing our own data. We should be self-evaluating. And it is included in that we will, a perspective percent at which we're trying to, it starts off at something super low, right? Like 10%, and then we're supposed to build. So we can make changes to that, obviously, but it should be based on our discussion here of like, okay, ideally, if we're making, and it's based on changes that were meant to be implemented relative to, as you said, how we operate.
Right.
And so, but it's also a way for us to stay cognizant every time we meet about our use of time.
Yep.
And I mean, I personally felt frustrated during our last meeting that we spent the least amount of time talking about the student outcomes. That was sort of we didn't have a lot of questions. It was, it felt like, so that's part of how you balance it. Spend more time, right, talking about student outcomes, but then also less time doing other work. And we've had a lot of other work that is not contributing positively to that. And so just having an honest conversation about how do we make that shift so that we are, in fact, more focused on student outcomes. And then as we talked about, and we had a great meeting, thank you, Director Harris, for I cannot talk with an echo in my ear. So I was like, I appreciate you taking over for me. But we had a great discussion, and staff had some really good input as well. And I did try to take notes about how we make sure that we start to limit our time in these types of forums. This is technically qualifies as self-evaluation, what we're doing right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then increase our time in two-way conversations with community, and in doing in our discussions around student outcomes, and so we all contribute one way or the other to it. And so I just think we should be taking the time that we have on the agenda to actually talk about it, instead of just saying, well, we haven't entered the data, let's not do it. That's my feeling about it.
No, I hear you, and I want to be super clear. I don't necessarily want to communicate, and if that is the way that I communicated it, that was not my intent in terms of not necessarily having the data and not doing it. It's just I don't know if anyone is prepared to have that conversation in a way that I think would be productive. So we can. I think that what I'm advocating for is, I know that as we are cementing this new process, I think that there is more that we could be doing in terms of the augmentation of the process. And I don't know, and honestly, this is on me, right? I haven't prepared the board in a way to have those conversations outside of just analyzing how much time that we put down for whatever coding categories, right? So what I think that I am saying, in addition to all of the conversation that we can have in this moment, is that a more dedicated workspace time to dig deeper into these things would be helpful, just because it's with this particular instance, we have 4 people here in person. We have 3 people gone. Not that that necessarily creates a barrier for participation, but I think that, there's just a lot of different factors at play in terms of making sure that we're doing this right, that I don't have a lot of good answers to. A couple of the questions that I have that maybe, again, one of our board governance coaches could answer for me is that in an event to in the instance when we are having a meeting and we clearly, want to spend more time speaking about student outcomes, but we don't necessarily have an opportunity to do so, what is the solution there, right? Do we ask for more progress monitoring, or what is the suggestion based on the Student Outcomes Focused Governance Guidelines for getting closer to that? Because there is a lot that we could say less, but we could go through this without saying anything, and we still might not necessarily reach whatever goal we're setting for ourselves. So that's kind of a question that's outstanding. So if anybody could speak to that and help me understand what tools we have available to us in the event that that happens, that would be helpful.
Well, just before, if I can, because I wasn't necessarily expecting you to respond to that. I really just wanted to insist that we use this time to talk about it, which is, so you kind of started that conversation, right? That's what I want to get to. I guess my expectation is that when we get to if we've already finished the end of the month, the first of the month would be that we then have the data.
Yeah.
And so if we don't have the data, then I ask Liza, okay, why don't we have the data? Just like we would ask Superintendent Jones, why don't we have the data for our self-evaluation? Right. And so
why don't we have the data? It's in there.
We have the data.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Chandra said I would ask Liza, and I'm like, no, it's in there. That was an example.
Oh, okay. So then I guess, well, but why aren't we talking about it then?
I don't.
We are. That's the thing. So that was the thing. So my question was earlier, what was the percentage of time that we used from last meeting on speaking about student outcomes? And so I was looking for a number. I don't know if we ever got that one. It's in the packet, but Liza, just for the record, could you, if you could locate it, could you tell us what our percentage was of time you spending on student outcomes focused governance last meeting?
Yes. So, let's see, is this the cumulative or the, oh, that's the cumulative. For
Cumulative though as well.
One more time, Chandra.
Yeah.
Can you take the cumulative as well? I mean, that's what we're going for, is a cumulative, not an individual meeting. So.
Oh yeah, sure. Both
okay.
would be great.
I'll read whichever one. Which one do you want me to read?
Both.
Okay. So for March 15th, we used 37% of our time doing goal monitoring.
Okay.
We used 19% of our time voting, 2% of our time doing board time use evaluation, and 42% of our time other. And that is 37% total student outcomes focused minutes.
Lit. I think that's
That
also
was
like,
last-
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. And so cumulatively, since we've started tracking, we have used 11% of our time on vision and goals, 4% on voting. And voting would include like anytime there's an action item, basically. So it would include like the item and the discussion around it. 1% self-evaluation, 2% time use evaluation, 7% board training, 7% board-led community training, which I'm not sure what that is, but that's okay. And then 67% other, for a total minutes focused on student outcomes, 11%.
Okay. So in terms of goal setting, what is the cadence at which we would need to set the goal, right? So like if we're measuring it cumulatively, would that be like by the end of the year, or are we setting particular targets like meeting to meeting? Is there any feedback there?
It's just intended to be, I mean, and the way that it's set up currently, we're self-evaluating based on, period to period, and then we would look at it on an annual basis.
Okay.
Same with, just like with any of the student data, right? Like we're just looking at, it's never going to be just one meeting. I mean, I think that's better than I expected. So, yes,
Sweet.
I'm happy. I was afraid we were going to be at like 4 or 6% or something. And so I'm pleasantly surprised. And that's, for me, cup is half empty. So that's going to be my general perspective. But yeah, so I'm super happy that we got there, and then would want to know from people, like, is this like, given, if you pull up the monitoring, the implementation, that's a conversation that you and Superintendent Jones can have, that you're having monthly about, okay, then what do we want to, when were we supposed to meet 10%? And then when do we want to try to get to a different level? And let's have that conversation from the board. But we need to come prepared to talk about it at these meetings.
Yeah. Do you have your hand up, Michelle? Okay. Yes, that makes sense to me. So, and here's one of the confusion points that I had, and I believe that this came from AJ, and I could be wrong, but I believe we are supposed to be setting a goal for ourselves at some point for where we want to achieve in terms of time. Because, I mean, obviously the goal is 50%, but like being realistic, that's unlikely to happen by the end of the year. So if Chandra, Michelle, somebody on the ad hoc committee could help me at some phase, and this doesn't necessarily be here, understand like what is the cadence of that goal setting, because I would like to include the board in it. I don't think that that's a thing that is exclusive to the superintendent. I think that we can all have, or me and the superintendent rather, I think we can all have the ownership over that. The other thing that it was on the tip of my tongue.
Just to be clear,
Go
not
ahead.
what I'm saying. We all approved a cadence in the implementation timeline already.
So what is it? Can you remind me?
I'm trying to.
Yep, you got it. Take your time.
But then you and Superintendent Jones could make adjustments or propose adjustments to us so that, based on where we are.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to know. I don't know the cadence off top, so I'm trying to get that information. And like I said, somebody can send it to me offline. If we've already approved it, that's great. I just don't remember what is the cadence of the goal setting, which is what I'm trying to get at. I think, and I remember the other piece. For staff, if we could get the time use evaluation document printed, I think that would position a lot of us to be more present in the conversation, just because it's hard to dig through and find the actual document in the electronic ones. So if we could get a physical copy printed, and if we already have that, please let me know. That's yours. Oh, that's a blank one. If we could get that printed, that'd be super great. Thank you so much. Okay, so Director Hampson, if you want to just give me a call or shoot me an email and we'll figure that out. And then maybe my question is not making sense. Maybe we could also be talking about two different things. I'm not sure. But thank you for all of the clarity and context that our experts have provided here this evening. Any other pieces on time use evaluation before we move on to the next thing? All right, so just for clarity, Director Sarju has done the kindness of tracking our time use evaluation for this month, and I am excited for our next opportunity to talk about how we can talk less about things that don't matter and more about things that do. Okay, we have two written updates attached to tonight's agenda. The first is the monthly budget status report, and second is the compilation of questions submitted in advance of today's meeting by board directors at the staff and the staff responses received and posted earlier this week. There being no further business to come before the board.
Wait, Brandon?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Yep.
I just found it. So I just
Great.
want to say
What is it?
Our goal for March was greater than 10%.
Lit. We made our goal by 1%. Do we have our goal for, do you have the goal handy for April?
I just found it, so I wanted
Thank
to hear
you.
it.
You're so fast. Okay. I appreciate it. Do you have the goal handy for April since we're heading in? Is it all in the same place or no?
I think it's, so it's supposed to be 20% by June.
Ooh.
We have time.
Okay.
We have time.
We got time. We got time.
We can do
Superintendent Jones, we need to chat. Yeah, for June, by June, we need to be at 20% time use spent on student outcomes. Possible. Okay.
I'll talk to AJ about rolling averages and that kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe there's some.
That would be super helpful. I just want to make sure that I have a lot of clarity around what we're holding ourselves accountable to so that I can do so. And I am being very transparent and vulnerable in the sense that I do not have that clarity at this moment. So
No, it's
yeah.
in there. It's in there on a quarterly basis. So,
lit.
yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. Now, there being no further business to come before the board, the regular board meeting is now adjourned at 6:33 p.m. Do we still have a closed session after this? Okay, cool. Do I have talking points for that? I don't need them. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. See you later.